So today we are going to discuss about coherent detection of FSK system. So yesterday we have been looking at so far how to identify whether it is an ASK, FSK or PSK, and how to generate an ASK, how to generate an FSK. That is what we have seen so far. And then we have also looked at coherent detection methods that is used for PSK, especially we have addressed about. In ASK also it will happen similarly, where we are going to take the reference of a carrier information with its particular frequency and amplitude, and then we are going to fix up a decision boundary in order to decide whether the received symbol is a ASK symbol, S1 or S2 or whatever. We can differentiate it. That we have seen in the lab also. We have been able to identify the ASK symbols easily by fixing up a decision boundary, and we have seen how AWG and noise is going to affect the ASK symbols in the lab part. So now coming to the third type of modulation technique, which is the third digital modulation, basic digital modulation, which is FSK system, that is frequency shift keying. So today we are going to look at how coherent detection of FSK is done, and how do we take care of decision boundaries, and how they are identified by making use of matched filter or a correlated receiver. So coming to the FSK system, what do you mean by FSK? FSK is a system, or FSK is a digital modulation scheme where the information is embedded. So information is embedded in frequency of the carrier, which is the parameter of the carrier. The information is embedded in the frequency of the carrier. Is this color visible? Can I use this particular pen? If not, I am going to make use of another pen to fix it. Okay. So the information, that is ones and zeros or the symbols, are conveyed by a particular frequency that we can use in order to inform the receiver that I am sending this particular symbol. So this is how we can send the information. So general form or general expression for a symbol waveform SI of t, for the case of FSK, I can write it as under the root 2e by t into cosine, which is the carrier function, which is having an argument omega I t. So which is a parameter which will be changing? It is the frequency of the carrier that keeps on changing. So therefore, in place of frequency, I have omega. Omega is nothing but 2 pi into f. So Fy, if I am changing, then omega will certainly change. So omega I into t plus phi, that is initial phase of the carrier. So this will also be taken into consideration. This is the equation or the representation of the symbol in time domain, which is sent across the channel over the symbol period 0 to capital T. So within one symbol duration, one particular symbol is sent by representing it using one frequency. If there are similarly, if the I varies from 1 to so on up to capital M, depending on the M array FSK that I am realizing, so many frequencies will be used in order to represent symbol S1, S2, so on up to Sm. So this is the general form or general expression to define an FSK system. One thing you need to remember is that we have been telling all the while where this E, capital E, is the energy content of the symbol, energy content of Si of t, and you need to know that capital T is the symbol duration. Another very important aspect when it comes to frequency is, whenever I am sending m symbols or m different waveforms to represent m different symbols, I am supposed to make use of m different frequencies, because I am talking about frequency shift keying. So whenever I want to transmit m different symbols, I am going to make use of m different frequencies. But when I do so, when I am going to choose that m different frequencies, it should be such that all these m carrier frequencies, m number of carriers must be orthogonal this we need to take into consideration always. Why? Because if they are not orthogonal, then whatever the symbol that I am going to send in the transmitter side, it will be ambiguous that particular transmitted symbol, whether it is S1 or S2 or S3, because if they are not orthogonal means I can express one symbol in the by making use of another symbol. So there will be some replicates that will happen within the symbols itself. So in the transmission itself there will be a lot of confusions. So we need, it's a very big necessity when it comes to FSK that all the m different carriers should be of different frequencies and they should be orthogonal to each other, which is the main criteria to choose the carrier frequencies. Again, when I say there should be m different carriers, when I say I want m different carriers to represent m different symbols, I cannot choose the frequencies for the m carriers randomly. That is because, let's suppose I'll fix up one of the carrier frequency as 100k for representing symbol 1. Next, I will take 200k. Okay, there should be orthogonal. Okay, let me take it like this, 100k and 110k, something like that. So the LCM of both of these values should be equal to 1. That means they should be orthogonal to each other. Then let's say I will take some value called 350 kilohertz. Like that I go on choosing, my last frequency is something like around, let's say 1150 megahertz or something like that. So you see, there are variety of carriers that are used in representing the symbols for an FSK system. When I do so, how much is the bandwidth that I am consuming? You can represent this, this is 1150k, so that amounts to 1.15 megahertz. So you see here, the frequencies that are varying from the first symbol to the last symbol, they are almost occupying a bandwidth of around 100 kilohertz. Approximately, I am talking about approximately, it is occupying around, not 100, I think it is 1 mega is the bandwidth that it is consuming. You can see here. This is the minimum frequency, this is the maximum frequency. You subtract them, you are going to get, this is 1150 minus 100 is almost, you are going to consume 1050 as the total bandwidth that is you are making use of 1050 kilohertz as the total bandwidth in order to transmit all the m symbols corresponding to MFSK system. So this is a very bad efficient or bad system, or which is we may call it as in terms of communication that it's an inefficient system, or it is not making use of the available bandwidth effectively. So I cannot randomly pick some frequencies and then use them as the carrier frequency. Rather, how to choose? There is a thumb rule in order to choose this carrier for an FSK system. How to choose is, let's suppose omega I is the frequency of first symbol. So the next frequency that I am going to choose is, I denote it as omega I plus 1. Omega I plus 1. So depending on this I value, you will have 1 plus added to that. So if this is omega 1, this will be omega 2. So it will be chosen, the omega 1 and that is omega I and omega I plus 1, the frequencies are chosen in such a way that if you take the difference between these two frequencies, it should always equal to integer multiple of, it should always be integer multiple, where k is the integer. Don't confuse it with the number of bits per symbol. Let me write some integer called t. So it should be integer multiple of pi by capital T. It should be integer multiple of pi by capital T, where T is the symbol duration. So the choice of the carrier frequency should be done in such a way that it is going to follow this rule, that it should be an integer multiple of pi by symbol period. So this helps us in putting or accepting or you making use of frequencies which are orthogonal to each other, and also we can consume less amount of bandwidth while we are making use of M array FSK. So this helps us in fixing up the frequency, carrier frequency, in order to represent M different symbols. So having said that, now I can always express this SI in terms of its basis function. As we know, basis functions are identified as in terms of xi j. I represent it in a general format called xi j, which is equal to under the root 2 by t cos omega j t, cos omega j t, where j can take any value from 1 to so on up to capital N. Only in this particular case, yet there is I'm trying to map SI into a n-dimensional vector space. Only for the case of FSK system, this n value will always be equal to M. Only for FSK. Only for FSK, this n value, number of orthogonal vector spaces, will always be equal to the number of symbols. This is only for the case of FSK. Now, how to identify the coefficients corresponding to the basis function is, the coefficient is always denoted as Aij. I hope this is visible. So it will be obtained by this expression over one symbol period. I am going to take the symbol notation which is under the root 2e by t. I consider this initial phase as 0 for simplicity's sake. So cos omega it multiplied by the reference basis function called cos omega gt into d. I am going to find out this integration. When I do this, this integration will give me two possible values. First possible value is equal to root e. This is the case where I is equal to j. When they are same, this both the cos multiplied with another cos, or the sinusoidal functions which are multiplied and integrated over a period, it will give me the positive value which is under the root e only when I is equal to j, and it will give me 0 otherwise. Whenever I and j are different, then it will give me a value equal to 0. That is because they are orthogonal to each other. These two frequencies are orthogonal to each other. Now, this idea or this method will help us in effectively identifying the symbols which are transmitted by making use of FSK. Why? Because whenever I talk about omega I, the received signal should also have the same frequency with the same phase to be identified as that particular symbol. So I can easily distinguish the symbols just by looking at the frequency itself. Okay. If the criteria is such that this omega j, omega j that I am using, if they are orthogonal to each other, then I can easily identify a symbol by just looking at its frequency. So this equation also says the same thing. Only when omega I is equal to omega j, I'll get a positive value. Otherwise, when they are different, I'm going to end up in a 0. That means it is not at all a signal. I mean, there is no signal content on that particular basis function. So this is going to help us in clearly identifying the symbol in an n-dimensional vector space. So now I'm just going to show you how a decision boundary is fixed for an n-dimensional, for an M-FSK system. I'm just going to take one particular example. This I have already explained, but I'm still going to do this. Yes.
Ma'am, P is the frequency component, ma'am.
What?
P is the frequency component.
P is the integer. Omega I plus 1 minus omega I should be equal to integer multiple of pi by t. Pi by t is the frequency in radians per second. Okay. Whatever I wrote the equation, omega I plus, I think you can see. Okay. Omega I plus 1 minus omega I should be such that this is a positive integer. p is a positive integer. It is just an integer. Okay, it has got nothing to do with any of the parameters. Okay, it should be, p is a positive integer, and this difference should be integer multiple of pi by capital T, where T is the symbol duration. So this is the way in which we are going to do the FSK modulation. And now coming to the case where m is equal to 3, why I am taking 3 is, 2 is a very typical case. It will be similar to your PSK, because it will have two basis functions, and you can easily identify the symbols by drawing the decision boundary there. There the decision boundary is simply a line between the two symbols, which looks like this. Let me show you that also. So I am going to show you the two cases of FSK when m is equal to 2 and m is equal to 3. Okay. For the 2 case, that is binary FSK. For binary FSK, I will have two different frequencies called omega 1 and omega 2 corresponding to the symbols S1 and S2. So therefore, the two symbols are identified by their respective basis functions with the frequencies omega 1 and omega 2. Therefore, since they are orthogonal to each other, I am going to represent Xi1, which is with the frequency omega 1, represented as under the root 2 by t cos omega 1t, and another orthogonal, on the orthogonal axis I have the second basis function Xi2 of t, which is equal to under the root 2 by t cos omega 2t. Now how to identify S1 and S2? There will be the symbols with an amplitude root e along the respective basis functions. This is S1 and this is S2. So there are only two symbols for m is equal to 2 case. Now how to fix up a decision boundary here? It is simple. Join the two symbols by a line and divide this line into half. So you are going to get a boundary. So whatever that lies, any of the received signal vector, if it lies above this line, then I am going to decide in favor of symbol S2. Whatever that symbol or the received signal vector, if it lies below this line, then I am going to decide in favor of symbol S1. So this is a decision boundary which I can easily make out by just looking at it, and for the m is equal to 2 case, it's rather very simple. Now we will go to m is equal to 3 case. So we are looking at a particular scenario where there are 3 different frequencies. To identify 3 different symbols, I represent them with the basis functions Xi1, Xi2 and Xi3. Correspondingly, it will have under the root 2 by t cos omega 1t, cos omega 2t, cos omega 3t. So there will be 3 different frequencies. So where to fix up the locations of the symbols? Again, along these basis function Xi1, I will have S1 with an amplitude root e. Along the basis function Xi2, I will have symbol S2 with an amplitude under the root e. Along the basis function Xi3, I will have the symbol 3 under the root e with an amplitude under the root e. So please remember this. And this m is equal to 3 is an hypothetical scenario. There is no practical scenario which is having m is equal to 3, because when m becomes equal to 3, the number of bits per symbol k, it is log of the value m to base 2, right? Log m to base 2. If you substitute m as equal to 3, you get k in terms of decimal, something like 1 point something something you are going to get. Okay, so there is no, I cannot send it bit in half. I can only send the bits in full. That means I can send 1 bit, 2 bit, 3 bit. I cannot send 1.5 bits. I cannot send 1.15 bits. So it is not quite practical to represent the bit transmission in fractions. So therefore, this m is equal to 3 is a very hypothetical scenario which is not very practical, but we are making use of this to give you an understanding what will happen for the m value in FSK for value greater than 2. Okay, and why we are not going with 4 is because of the reason that 4 cannot be represented on a two-dimensional plane, or I cannot show it in terms of a diagrammatic manner. So therefore we are only fixing to the representation of n is equal to 3. Now let us see how to fix up a decision boundary here. As I said, in order to fix up a decision boundary for this case, what we were doing previously, we were joining the two symbols and we were identifying what is the midpoint between those two. Here also we can do the same thing, but only change is that I need to differentiate S2 from not only with S3 but also with S1, okay, which lies on the other axis, which means it is a particular plane which is going to separate S1, S2 from S3. So it looks somewhat like this. This is the plane which separates S2 from S3, and there should be another plane which separates S1 from S3 and S2. So it looks like this, and there will be another plane which separates S3 from S2 and S1. So this is how our decision boundary is fixed. But here it will not be a line, rather they are called as decision planes. They are called as decision planes. Now it is very easy because it's a three-dimensional representation. I can easily write the plane. If I go with m is equal to 4 case, I cannot go with it. It would be a three-dimensional structure. It will not be a planar structure. Rather, it is going to be a three-dimensional object which is going to separate the symbols differently. So which cannot be represented geometrically on a two-dimensional plane. So we are going with only m is equal to 3. Now, if you look at the difference between these two symbols or any two symbols in a FSK, the difference or the distance between symbol S1 and S2 and S2 and S3 or any two symbols taken at a time, the distance between Si and its next symbol Sj, it can be obtained by taking the norm. Norm means it is nothing but the magnitude of the difference, that is Si minus Sj. It will always be equal to under the root 2e. In most of the case it is true. It will be equal to under the root 2e for I not equal to j. Now how to identify, how to reconstruct, how to do the coherent detection here is, I am going to make use of matched filter again. Let's suppose R is the received signal and erase this part. M is equal to 2 case and erase. So whenever I am going to receive a received vector R of t, which is the combination of the signal Si plus n of t, I am going to correlate this Si with respect to the different basis functions that I have. So Si will be compared against, will be correlated against the different basis functions, which is xi1t. Of course, here nt will also be multiplied with xi1t, and s plus n compared with xi2t, and si plus n into xi3t. When I do so, you saw it in the previous expression that whenever the two frequencies are same, only then I get a positive value. Whenever the frequency of xi1 matches with the frequency of S1, then I get a positive value. If the frequency of Si and xi2, if they are not matching to each other, then I end up in a 0, which clearly tells the receiver that the particular signal that is being transmitted is the one which has the positive value, one that is giving me the positive value. Therefore, I can identify the symbol that was actually transmitted. Is this clear so far? Yes or no?
Ma'am.
Okay, so this is it with respect to the coherent modulation or coherent detection methods that are used for identifying or used for detecting ASK, PSK and FSK. Of course, we have studied MPSK and binary PSK. We have studied MFSK and M is equal to 2 FSK, which is binary FSK. So this is the one. This is the method that is used for coherent detection. Everywhere we make use of coherent receiver or correlated receiver or the matched filter receiver so far. So I think these concepts are clear with you people. So I am going to continue with the next part of this particular explanation, that is different types of modulation technique. Now we are going to discuss about some of the modulation methods which do not require any carrier information like phase and all. So without the instantaneous phase value of the carrier, without doing coherent detection, I would still be able to get the information, the digital information that is transmitted over the channel. So such a methods or such modulation technique which makes use of or which do not make use of the carrier information of the receiver are called as non-coherent modulation techniques. So now we are going to discuss about non-coherent modulation techniques. So we are going to discuss about non-coherent modulation schemes. So in that particularly, now we are going to discuss about non-coherent detection of PSK. Non-coherent detection of PSK. So there is a small come around by which we are going to make use of in PSK system itself, which will help me to not make use of carrier information, the phase of the carrier information without using the phase, because the phase itself, as the name states, the phase of the carrier is the one which holds the complete information that I am transmitting. It is not the amplitude, it is not the frequency. Rather, it's the phase of the signal that embeds the information which is transmitted. So here what we are going to do, here we will not consider the phase of the carrier itself. Then how will we be able to recover the information? Do you have any idea about this? Or can you make a guess and tell me? The method it says is the PSK system, that is, it makes use of phase of the carrier to modulate and transmit the information. But here what we are saying is, we are not going to, in the detection part, we are not going to make use of the instantaneous phase of the received signal. So here is a come around that we are going to do in the transmission of the PSK, that we are going to make use of differential coding. We are going to make use of the method called as differential encoding. Therefore, this non-coherent scheme or non-coherent modulation technique which is used for along with PSK, we call it as differential PSK. This is very important. This is the most practically used PSK type when we are making use of only 2 symbols or 4 symbols. So PSK, mostly we are going to make use of one single bit transmission, but this is a very minimalistic or a simplest modulation technique that could be used in digital schemes. So it is called as DPSK in short, also known as differential PSK. So in this differential PSK, we are going to make use of what is called as differential encoding. I don't know whether you know this procedure or not. So this makes use of a non-coherent techniques in order to detect the information. That means I do not require the carrier phase information in order to identify the bits that is actually transmitted. So what we do is, we are going to modulate the information differentially. We are going to encode the incoming bit stream differentially, and then we are going to send by assigning certain phases to the encoded bits we are going to assign the phases and then send it across, and then we recover back the same information. So how to do is that, let me give you the theoretical part, then I'll explain to you with an example. Okay, assume that I have a symbol Si of t which is the PSK type. So it will be of the type under the root 2e into t cos omega naught t. I know its phase, instantaneous phase is given as phi I, or let me write it as theta I of t, which is changing with respect to time. So with respect to the symbol which I am transmitting. So this is sent across the channel over a symbol period 0 to t. And I can take any value from 0 to, 1 to m. So these are the PSK modulated symbols. Now when I transmit this, at the receiver front end, I am going to receive another the signal, which is the transformed version of the signal that is transmitted, which is going to have omega naught t, which is also going to have theta jt. Let me name it as theta it or theta jt. Okay, let me name it as theta it. And this phase might change due to variation in the channel, so it might get shifted to an arbitrary phase called alpha. So along with this initial phase, it gets also shifted by an angle called as alpha due to the noise within the channel, and there is additive white noise also, that is n of t. So assuming that this is what I am going to get, how do I do the reconstruction? How can I do the reconstruction? And this alpha is a very arbitrary value. It's an arbitrary constant value which is random in nature. Therefore, it's a random variable whose value, it is uniformly distributed anywhere within the values 0 to 2 pi. What is this? It's a random variable, or it's a random information called alpha. Its value can vary anywhere in between 0 to 2 pi. Now you see what will happen if the phase varies. I have transmitted a PSK with a phase 0 degree. Now alpha, it has got phase shifted by a value called as alpha, which is around pi by 2. Now the entire symbol got changed to some other signal which cannot be reconstructed. So in such cases, I will not be able to identify the symbol properly when alpha is not known correctly on the receiver side. So in order to overcome this procedure, we are going to make use of one technique where we are going to make use of the information which is, let me show it to you. I'll make use of the same expression and then I'll try to explain. Now, let me consider at the time instance t1, at the receiver, at the time t1, I obtain this as my phase of the received signal. So, I obtain at t1, I name it as theta t1. Theta t1, I represent it as equal to theta t1 plus alpha. The phase that I am going to obtain, or let me name this as phi I of t1 is equal to theta t1 plus alpha, and at time t2, capital T2, I obtain second phase called as, this is theta I or theta k, let me name it as theta k, and this one is theta j, obtained at time instance theta 2. Now, in both the cases I am writing alpha. Why? Because I am assuming that this alpha varies very slowly. This alpha changes very slowly and it is not abrupt, and it will remain the same for over a period of 2 symbol duration. Assume that the arbitrary change in the phase of the received signal, will varies very slowly, and it varies over a period of 2t. That means over 2 consecutive symbol duration, the value will be alpha. 2 consecutive symbol duration, the value will be alpha, and it changes only after this 2 symbol period. And here this will be alpha 1, and for the next 2 symbol period it will be alpha 2, like that. So I am assuming that this alpha changes very slowly within the channel, because the channel is not so dynamic enough in order to change the angles quickly for every transmission of the symbol. So rather we are going to assume that the channel is at least constant, or it's going to offer the same arbitrary phase change for the symbol transmitted over 2 symbol period. That is the assumption, simple assumption that we are going to make, and it is quite practical also. Why? The channel need not have to change very instantly. The channel will always be, always have a progressive change, or rather we can estimate the channel variation. So what we are estimating here is that this arbitrary change in the phase of the received signal will change very slowly over 2 symbol duration. Having said that, now what we will do, we are going to compare the signal phase which I have obtained at time duration t2, the signal duration or the signal phase that I have obtained at time t2. I am going to compare or take the difference of the phases which is obtained at t2. I am going to subtract it with the phase obtained at time t1. While doing so, you can see here the alpha values will cancel out, thereby the phase difference, that is theta j obtained at t2 minus theta k obtained at time t1, this will be actually equal to the phase phi I, which would be mapped to one of the phases of the symbols which I have transmitted. So by doing like this, I can easily identify the symbols, or easily I can embed the information within the transmitted symbol. That means I keep track of I save the phase obtained at the time instance t1 till I obtain the phase of the next symbol. Then I am going to subtract with the previously available information to obtain the actual phase of the symbol that was transmitted. So now, not these things, not the actual phases that will contain the information, rather the difference of the phases will contain the information. If these two angles, or if these two phases are 0 degree apart, then I am going to assign with a bit 1. If they are 180 degree phase apart, then I am going to represent it with bit 0. So like that I can assign the phases, or I can embed the information not in the absolute phase, rather I am going to embed the information with the differential phases. That's the reason why the name for this particular modulation scheme, it is said to be differential phase shift keying. I hope I am clear enough here. If you didn't understand any part of this, you can ask me in between. So I am just going to help you in diagrammatically knowing what it actually says. What is this differential phase? Let's suppose I have the basis function xi1. I am going to map the two symbols, and this is xi2. First, I am going to map, I obtain the first symbol with a point a1 comma b1. Assume that this a1 comma b1, which was obtained previously. Now in the second time instance, I obtain another vector, received vector, with the points a2 comma b2 with the same basis functions. Now what I do not associate this value itself as s1. No, I won't do that. Rather I am going to find out the angle difference between, or the phase difference between the two obtained vectors, that is xi1, and this contains the actual information. So angle is measured to identify the symbols. So this will be the previously obtained symbol or coefficients. This one would be currently received signal vector. So what we need to do while transmitting and receiving is that I need to design my structures in such a way that I should be able to differentially encode them before I could do PSK modulation, transmit it across, and then I also have to differentially decode them on the receiver side. Let us see with a simple example how this is done. For this process, for the differential encoding process on the transmitter side, we will make use of some logical operation on the bits itself, which is going to help me in finding the relation between the current bit with the previous bit. So for that process, we can make use of two functions which is called as CK, where CK is the modified bit stream with the message K plus 1 XORed with the message at Kth instance. Sorry, Mk minus 1 plus. Okay, so this is how I am going to make use of the information, or you can also modify this as Mk minus 1, which is the previous bit, and the current bit you take and you XOR it. This is XOR. The first operation is XOR operation, the second operation is XNOR operation. You can use either one of the operations on the transmitter side, modify the bit stream, and later for this modified CK you make the PSK modulation. You do the general BPSK modulation or MPSK modulation and then send it across. On the received signal also you are going to do the same thing. So the structures that are used to do this process is, I am just going to write the transmitter and receiver. So the transmitter for DPSK system, DPSK transmitter, how it looks is, we are going to first have the message source M of K. We can also call this as serial data which is coming in, or the bit stream that is coming in. So serial data input, I will pass this through a logical operator which is XOR operator. With what value? One of the input is Mk, the other one is the delayed version of it. So it is delay, 1 bit delay. So this will have 1 bit delay. So the XOR operation will happen between the actual message input with its 1 bit delayed output, and this output I am going to do the modulation, where this is called as balanced modulator. Balanced modulator. For this I am going to pass the carrier information, and this will be sent as the differential phase shift keying modulated message or information signal. So this is the DPSK output. Okay, this is the transmitter side. In the receiver side, how it looks is, so DPSK receiver, it will be the similar process and the reverse process. I take the received signal. You can do the correlator operation, that is, you are going to have the integrator over a period 0 to t. Then you can have, or let me write another way, then later on I will come to the structure, why I will tell you later. I can have a multiplier. R of t will be fed to a multiplier with its direct version. The other one will be the delayed version of it, which is delayed for one symbol duration, and it will be sent to the correlator structure, which is integrator from 0 to t. Then its output will be sent to the decision stage or the decision making stage, which decides whether the sample value, whether it's a 0 or a 1, will be decided by this decision stage, and the obtained output of this would be the actual symbol of your DPS. I hope this side it is visible. I hope so. So you can make a note of this. This side is the transmitter
No, ma'am.
side. You cannot see receiver.
Not fully, ma'am.
Not visible.
Yeah, I'll write it below. You can check it. So the transmitter is simple. The receiver is also simple structure. So R of t will be sent to a multiplier with its delayed copy, which is delayed by one symbol duration. I'll be passing to the multiplier like this, and this one will be integrated over the symbol duration 0 to t, and next we will be passing it to the decision making stage, which will identify the given zt will be either a 0 or a 1, and obtained output would be the signal copy or recovered signal copy, that is SI of t. Make a note of this. I'll show you one example. With that we shall wind up for today's class. Is this clear? This is the receiver structure. This is a very non-optimal solution. Tomorrow I'll give you the optimal structure for the receiver of the same DPSK. So why we are going to do this process? Because in PSK itself we know that we are going to assign the phases to ones and zeros, and then we are directly modulating it. Then why do we require this differential phase shift key? The basic necessity, please listen, the basic necessity for making use of DPSK is the reason that I need not have to know the instantaneous phase of the carrier. That is the first reason. I need not have to know the instantaneous phase of the carrier in order to mix with the reference signal and then try to obtain by passing it through a correlator receiver. That I need not have to do. I need not have to have a reference signal with a proper phase matched to the received signal. That is not required. The reason too why we are going with this particular non-coherent modulation technique is because of the reduction in the complexity of both the transmitter and the receiver. You can see the modulator is a very simple structure where I need only one logical operator with XOR operator and a multiplier with the carrier input. It is just as simple as this, which can generate a DPSK modulated system, and receiver structure is also rather very simple. Why? Because here I can have a simple comparator. Here this one would be an integrator, and delayed version anyhow we can come across with by making use of a flip-flop, one stage flip-flop. If you use, you can delay it. If you give the clock timing depending on the symbol duration, you can delay it by one symbol duration. So this is how we can reduce the complexity in the design of a modulator and a demodulator, or transmitter and a receiver for the differential systems. So this is one base. These are the two main reasons why we are going with a simple PSK to a differential PSK. But the very disadvantage of the system for a non-coherent system is the very same advantages itself. That means in PSK system, if you remember, we were making use of a reference signal as the symbol waveforms itself, whereas here we will rely upon the proper detection of the previous bit in order to identify the incoming bits. So for an incoming bit to be identified properly, I should rely upon the proper detection of the previously received bit, which is important. Now I am going to give you an example as to how this works. So I am just going to give you the sample index. That means assume that I am going to collect one sample per bit. So I am going to have 10 samples, which means I am going to show you a sequence of 10 bits how this system works. Okay, there are only 10 symbols. Let me write a little bit to the left so that you can see. sample index. So this is just an index to help you in identifying at what time instance what is sent. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10th bit. So this is the reference, time reference for you, and the information bits will be represented as m of k. So information bits will be represented as m of k, and m of k will always start with, not with the zeroth, this zeroth is, we call it as reference. We started with 1 usually. So the bit stream is, I am taking is 1 1 0 1 0 1 1 0 0 1. This is the bit stream, and then I am doing the differential encoding for the message mk. So differentially encoded bits, that I call it as C of k. Here I am going to make use of XOR operation. What do you mean by XOR operation? That is CK. C of k is equal to m of k modulo 2 added with mk minus 1. Okay. Modulo 2 added means 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 0 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 0. That we know. So see here, for the first bit, for the very first bit, there is no reference, there is no previous bit, that is mk minus 1. So I will add one reference bit. It's an arbitrary choice. You can either choose 0 or 1, it's totally up to you. Whichever you want you can choose. Whenever you choose 0 or 1, that is left to you, it is our choice, but make sure while assigning the phase you are going to assign it properly. So I am choosing the arbitrary bit as 1. This I call it as reference bit. This I call it as reference bit. Now I am going to use this equation in order to do the process. 1 plus 1, sorry 1, I think XNOR operation is used. Let us make use of XNOR operation. Even with XOR you can get, I am going to choose it with XOR or XNOR, whatever you want you can choose. In both the cases you are going to get the same answer. Let me choose XNOR operation. 1 plus 1 will be 1 for XNOR. 1 plus 1 is again a 1. 1 plus 0 will be 0. 0 plus 1 is 0. Right? 0 plus 0 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 1. Sorry, 1 plus 1 is, 1. 1 plus 1 is 1. XNOR operation. 1 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 1. So this is what I get after encoding the incoming bit stream. Once I encode it like this, I am going to assign the corresponding phase shifts using PSK. So corresponding phase shift means I am going to assign the theta values for this. I am going to assign the phase shifts for this theta k. I represent it with theta k. So here the theta k is such that all the bit ones are represented with pi phase, that is 180 degree, and 0 bits are represented with 0 phase, which is normal simple BPSK representation that we are making use of. So this is what I am going to transmit. Okay, this theta k is what is going to get transmitted. Now on the receiver side, what will happen? Assume that I have received these phases without any distortion, and the reconstructed message bits, that is m cap of k, assuming that all the phases are detected, or rather the first phase is detected properly, then this first phase, you observe here, if you look at this phase in reference to the previous phase, assuming that this has been identified properly, if both the phases are same, then I denote it with bit 1. Okay, it is same XNOR operation only. If only if two phases are same, I represent it with 1. If the two phases are different, I represent it as 0. That is 1 plus 1, I mean 5 minus 5 is 0, the phase difference is 0, so it is represented as 1. Again the phase difference is 0. I represent it with 1, 0, pi. So there is a difference in phase. So it will be denoted with 0. 0 and a 0, there is no phase difference. So it is 1. Pi and 0, there is a phase difference. Therefore it is 0. Pi and pi, 1. Pi and pi, 1. 0 and pi, 0. 0 and pi, 0. Pi and pi is equal to 1. So you can check the first line, that is m of k, and the last line, which is m cap of k, both are same. Yes, both are same. 1 1 0 1 0 1 1 0 0 1. So even if you make use of XOR operation, you need to do the same. You need to use the same algorithm to detect the information. So in the XOR operation, it will be something like this. I'll just show you that example also. Let me show you the operation for the XOR. With this, I'll close for today. Observe here, then you can finally write it or find what will happen later. 1 plus 1 is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 0 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1. So this is the XOR operation that has taken place. Now I am going to assign the phases here. Pi, 0, pi, pi, 0, 0, pi, 0, 0, 0, pi. Now how do I reconstruct the messages? Whenever there is phase difference, I represent it with bit 1. Whenever there is no phase difference, then I represent it with 0. Okay. So this is 0 and a pi. So there is a phase difference. So it is equal to 1. Pi and a 0, 1. Pi and pi, 0. 0 and pi, 1. 0 and 0, 0. Pi and 0, 1. 0 and pi, 1. 0 and 0, 0. 0 and 0, 0. Pi and 0 is 1. So you can see again, in both the cases, the message that is transmitted and the message that is reconstructed, both are same. Whether you use XOR operation or XNOR operation, both will result in the same method, or both logic will work for this differential PSK system. I hope this is clear enough. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Any doubts? No doubts. So I am assuming that the phase is properly synced between me transmitter and you the receiver. Hopefully. So if you have any doubts, you can come up with the doubts and ask without fail in the next coming class, or you can ask me otherwise offline also. No doubts?